Hello all, and welcome to tonight's comparative review. Now this was done as a request by someone who went and posted on my one of my other reviews. I can't remember which, but they asked me to go and compare Jameson and Chivas Regal. So, being that is the first and only request that I've had so far, and since I can sort of fulfill that request, I've decided to go ahead and do a comparative tasting. It's not one that I would have thought of myself, but, you know, because one's an Irish whiskey and one's a splendid Scotch, and, you know, they're two very different styles of whiskey. So if you're looking for really in-depth details on each whiskey, I would go and suggest that you go and look at the two reviews in regards to each specific whiskey. I guess at this point I should probably go and put up those little links there, but I'm lazy. And you can go and do a little bit of clicking and find it yourself, because I don't care, I do this for fun. No, I joke. Maybe I will go and put those two previous reviews up. I'm not a YouTube power user, if you figured it out by now. So, obviously, a little bit difficult to go and tell apart just by looking. The Chivas Regal is slightly darker than the Jameson. You can see here, kind of, well, I guess you can't really see it too well. I put both of them on a white envelope so I can kind of compare them. And so, I think the Chivas Regal looks a little bit darker than the Jameson. Just a shade darker. Okay, how about the nose? Obviously, it's going to be quite different. Still have that sort of oaky, raisiny, slightly fruity, almost a tad bit sherried note to the Jamesons. But all in all, pretty clean. The Chivas definitely smells richer, sweeter, raisinier, with just that little hint of peat smoke. Just that little hint. That little hint of peat smoke makes all the difference in the nosing, though. And in the taste. I don't even need to taste it to tell you that. So, let's go back to the Jameson here. Very light on the palate. There's that sort of fruitiness that I find evident in the regular Jameson, but it's kind of toned down a bit. And the graininess is almost gone except in the finish. There's a bit of graininess, you can tell that graininess from the finish there. Far more prevalent is a sort of oaky and chocolatey, especially on the tongue, kind of a chocolatiness, dark chocolatiness. With a more, I'm not going to say effervescent because that thing makes me think, but a much more volatile note of vanilla in the nose cavity, sinuses, and the place that always gets clogged up with me. So despite the sort of, you know, thinness on the mouthfeel, there's quite a bit of rich flavor going on there. And I just realized I forgot to go and fill up on water. I'll be right back. Be but 2 shakes of a lamb's tail. Making sure your palate is clean in between tastings is a very important part of doing these sort of comparative reviews. See? 2 shakes of the lamb's tail. Now, let's go to the Chivas. Definitely much more thicker on the palate. Sweeter. Also hotter. It doesn't come across as clean as the Jameson's does. Definitely on the warm side. It's a hint of peat that sort of balances out the sweetness, especially in the finish there, but it's just a ghost of peat. It's not like you're drinking a very peaty Scotch. It's not even strong as most Highlands. Excuse me. Again, most prominent thing is a sort of hotness to it. Definitely feel that warmth on your tongue, warmth going down. While not as sweet or intense tasting as the Chivas, I find that the Jameson's Black Barrel Reserve has well, actually not a bit. I would say a good share more complexity than the Chivas Regal does. So, when it comes down to it, I always choose complexity and balance over, intensity of flavor and especially alcohol content. Alcohol content doesn't really matter all that much to me. And in this case, it's the same for both of them. So, because of the complexity, because it's, fairly smoother, there's not much heat, I'm going to definitely go and say that given the choice in between the two, I would go with the Jameson Select Reserve Black Barrel. Now, the caveat here is that this is an Irish whiskey. It's not a Scotch. So those of you who are expecting a Scotch-like experience I don't know if you'd be disappointed. I don't know what you would be thinking that Jameson would be like Scotch. So, it's going to be an Irish whiskey experience, but it's going to be a good Irish whiskey experience that gives you, a fair amount of complexity, especially for the price point. If I remember correctly, it was about $35. Only a hair more expensive than the Chivas Regal. That said, both of them are very drinkable. Again, as I said in the Chivas Regal review, I quite enjoy it on the rocks as a drink that you drink without really having to think about it all that much. And so, this really comes down to personal taste. If you're someone who likes Irish whiskey as much as Scotch whiskey, or really just about any whiskey, though honestly I'm not too big on the Canadian whiskeys, but hey, if you guys want to go and school me on some good Canadian whiskeys, I'm all ears. You know, so all things considered, I would go for this one. Your mileage may vary. Give both a shot if you're willing. That's your comparative review for tonight, folks. Just have yourselves a good weekend, and cheers.